So I'll count it off.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3.
Just let's go.
1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey folks, welcome back to the rehearsal room. Nick here.
Aaron's here.
Today we're gonna bring in another guest. Some folks might know him from many of the musical projects he's been a part of. He's a very well-known lover of cats. And if you ever took anything into any of the record shops he worked at, you'd realize his beard is incredibly recognizable and familiar. Thank you for joining us, Pete Majors.
Yay.
Oh, awesome. Oh, thanks,
Great
guys.
to have you.
Thanks,
Yeah, thank you for
having
coming
me.
in. So Pete's here to talk about some of his musical past of himself, as much as he's willing to divulge. But also, he's got a music festival coming up.
Absolutely.
Aaron? if
Yeah.
you know.
You got it coming up, the Idlewild Experimental Music Fest. I want to make sure I got that right, so I wrote it down. It's Saturday, June 28th, starting at 5 p.m. There's a Facebook page for it. We will put it in our notes for the episode.
Yep.
For sure, to link you to it. And if you're into experimental music and some great artists, head out, give it a shot. This is your second one, right?
Yeah, this is the second year. I was, it was kind of an experiment, no pun intended, with the
It was
first year. Really, being so far away from LA now, living in Idlewild and not working in a record store, which I had done for 25 years. I've been pretty removed. I'm not active in any bands right now with in rehearsing and playing out. So I kind of wanted to do something special up where I live, bring something up there that I think most folks don't really know and haven't haven't been exposed to.
Right on.
And experimental music is such a love of mine because it has all the things that attract me about being an artist. Something that doesn't have boundaries. It doesn't have any. It's not pretentious in the sense that it's not about just skill. It's not about money. It's about doing something that's fun and making art. And it just doesn't put you in a box, and it's open to anyone. So it's very inclusive in that sense. So that was also a big idea of the fest, was having a lot of diversity, not just from the types of experimental music, whether you're noise or ambient, electronic, free jazz, but to have a diversity within the people who are performing, not just to have, so to speak, a bunch of white guys making noise.
Right.
And so this is the second one this year?
So yeah, this year's the second one. Super stoked on the lineup. I'm kind of blown away. Some of the performers who said yes,
Right on.
because again, it's not about money. It's not. No one's going to go up there and be able to pay for their Airbnb that night.
Sure.
And the expensive food on the hill, because everything is more expensive when you have to drive 25 miles up a mountain.
Right.
Sure.
Last year's events, do you recall any other performers or any standout performers that you would have, that you enjoyed mostly?
Everyone was great because I curate the event, and ultimately it's been like an invite situation. So it's really been people that I know, not just as musicians, but have a friendship and a relationship with. So, and it's been a lot of people from Southern California and the Los Angeles area, which, again, this is a starting point. I hope to expand on that. I hope to make it, as it is a destination type festival, but open it up to more people within the country, within the scene, within, the world, if that could correlate with other people's traveling and touring schedules.
Sure.
So again, everyone last year was awesome, and I'm happy to say that they were all my friends.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
it was super cool.
Did you find that locals were open to it, or was it more you found your friends that you knew would show up kind of thing? But were there people within your local area that were like, what is this all about, and actually show up?
Oddly enough, yes.
Oh, cool.
And
That's
again, this is why it was I don't have any expectations in terms of how many people are going to show up.
Sure.
will there be locals? Oddly enough, there were.
Cool.
There are people who are some people I just casually know, some people who teach at Idlewild Arts, which is the high school I work at.
Okay.
So it was weird to see people there and then have conversations and you know, maybe some of this was new to them or they're trying to relate it to maybe the noisiest thing they've probably ever experienced, but really don't have much of a context for what they were witnessing.
Right on.
And then also, again, you know, not getting beat over the head. It's not just going to be a bunch of people doing power electronics and noise.
Right.
And while there is some of that, it varies so that, like, you know, the next act is not going to be the same as what you just saw.
Right on.
That's
You know,
cool.
so it'll be
There's still variety. in
yeah,
there.
variety, and I think make it more interesting for the attendee.
Very cool.
That's
Very
cool. How did you get into like this type of music or performance like originally?
I think experimental music wasn't until I moved to LA. From when I was living up in the Bay Area, where I worked at the school at San Jose State, is when I started working at record stores. I was working at Rasputin Music, and that was the first time I'd ever seen an experimental music section.
Yeah.
And not really knowing it other than like the few acts that like say like Relapse had put out. So it's like, well, I've heard of Merzbow or Masana
Right.
because, you know, this metal label had put them out on their Release Entertainment.
Right.
So that was like the first exposure I had to that kind of stuff. But moving back to LA, meeting James and Sandor and Harasser, they always had a love for that. You know, Sandor kind of grew up around Claremont, you know, after he'd moved here from Hungary. So with the record stores there and the radio station, I think he had a passion for that. So when we started out, I think we all just had a certain amount of like enthusiasm just to fuck around.
Yeah.
I mean, we would even change instruments in practice at times,
That's cool.
just to have fun. And James and Sandor had a project together. I believe that was called Urethra Franklin, which, you know, this 25 years ago. You know,
Nice.
yeah.
That's cool.
Is it an R&B thing or?
Exactly. This crooning.
That's good that you found that at Rasputin because when I lived up there, that's one of the stores that I frequented, just because of the variety of what they carried. You
Yeah,
know, and
totally.
whether it was music or movies, I was just like, oh, I'm in love with this store.
Yeah, it was a great time too when I started there in the late 90s. It was a great time to buy vinyl as a lot of things were available, but to, you know, people who didn't embrace it yet, it hadn't made the revival. So I can remember getting I wasn't a vinyl guy per se. I had grown up with records as a kid because I'm from I was born in the 70s. But, you know, I'd work with all these cats who just would rave about vinyl, and I'm just like, I wasn't really hearing it. But then I worked there, so I finally got a turntable again. It's the first time since I was a little kid I bought a turntable. Started buying some of my favorite records, and I could just go into the database for like how we ordered, which was, you know, all like faxing back then, no emails and shit. And I would just order stuff. It's like, who knows? But it would all come in. You know, and because no one cared, and it was in a warehouse somewhere, and it was cheaper than CDs. You know, I would get like records for like $10, $11. Wow. In like 98 and 99. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, Rasputin was a really fun place to work. Well, at least for a while. There's a reason I left there too.
And then moving back to LA, did you step into working at a record shop as soon as you moved back to LA, or that took some ramp up time?
No. So I had decided I'd put in notice at Rasputin's, and then I immediately was interested in working for Amoeba.
Gotcha.
So I had come down on like a spring break kind of vacation. I think it was like Easter, and I was visiting my folks, and I had an interview at the Hollywood store. So and that had been open for like, I don't know, like 4.5 months at that point. Oh, wow. In which case I still lived in the Bay Area, and they offered me a job at any of the stores. So I did I did one shift at the buy counter in San Francisco at the Haight-Ashbury store, training, but I had decided that I wanted a fresh start in LA and that I was going to move down here. So I moved down here and was immediately working at Amoeba Hollywood.
That's cool. That's cool.
My second shift, I was supposed to work This ties in with something. My second shift, I was supposed to work at the buy counter, training at the buy counter in San Francisco. I actually called them and said I couldn't make it because I was too busy like packing. I was just, kind of overwhelmed for my move down south and wasn't really going to change much. But the reason is my coworker, or I could almost say one of my employees, because I was a general manager of the Rasputins in Campbell, was named Mitch French. And you might know this guy from a band called Operator Generator.
Oh, yeah.
And super tight with Matt Pike.
Matt Pike, yeah.
So Mitch knocked on my door that morning, and it's like, Pete, we're going over to Pike's. And I was like, yes, we are.
Say no more.
So that ended up being a whole day of just hanging out with Matt Pike.
Nice.
And smoking weed.
What?
And listening, yeah. He was happy because I would go to Humboldt like every other month and buy weed from Humboldt. And so I always had really good weed. And pretty much just because I smoked so much back then, I don't even think I drank hardly at all. I just smoked a ton of weed back then.
Nice.
So I came over and I was just packing him bowls. He had like all the promos for the new releases on Relapse because this is right when Surrounded by Thieves was about to come out.
That's cool.
And so we're sitting there, we're listening to like Nile and Mastodon and shit like that,
Right.
like the first full lengths that kind of came out on Relapse, and smoking. And then he didn't have a car that ran. Like he had a few cars, and I want to say this was like a girlfriend that he lived with, but he had a check from Relapse, and he wanted to go cash it. So I drove him to a check cashing store to cash this, like I don't know, a couple $1,000s from Relapse. And it was just kind of funny to me. And as we hung out like all day, and he's like, "Do you know why I called the album Surrounded by Thieves?" I'm like, "No, I don't." And he kind of just his history with music and the business from the days in Sleep and how they really never made money and got taken advantage of the way a lot of bands do.
Sure.
To even like before the Man's Ruin record, before Art of Self-Defense, they had an EP. I think it was called 12th Century Records. And there was a few bands that had releases. There was a band called Kuda that I really liked. I want to say one of those guys ended up being in Bongzilla later. But they would put out like EPs and they ripped them off. And I think he just was pretty bitter about it at that point. And embracing, what the money was, even for the time from Relapse.
Sure.
It was just kind of a fun day.
Yeah,
and,
that sounds
and every time I've ever talked to Matt since, I don't think Matt ever remembers me. But I
That
don't.
is some good weed.
Yeah, right.
That's cool though. That's cool.
That's a cool story, man.
Yeah. Did you, when you moved to LA, did you start playing music as well, or did that come later also?
So I really hadn't been playing music as an adult. I had a band in high school that really didn't do much, and
vocalist, or were you playing guitar or anything like?
Vocals.
Okay.
I started playing guitar when I was about like 13, 14.
Okay.
And then I broke my arm. Like my fret arm, and had a metal plate and 5 bolts put in, and just kind of like the practice that it takes to have the dexterity in the bend there was already like a problem.
Okay.
And then I think I did just slowly move over to vocals.
Okay.
I wasn't any good at it, but then again, I was better at it than I was at guitar. So I think I've always been a vocalist in that way. And I used to do like acting, like drama club and musicals and things like performance stuff like that. So I liked the attention.
So you had the high school band. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Just wanted to kind of know.
So I had a high school band, but then I didn't really do anything. I had a roommate when I lived up north when I was working at Rasputin's. We both worked at Rasputin's, and he had a stoner rock band. And I remember one time he was like, would you ever want to sing with us? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, well, let's think of a song. And I was like, we're like, how about, what about a Clutch song? I'm like, let's do Rats.
Right on.
So I remember I would do Rats with them, never live, just in the rehearsal room. And it had been years since I sang. But something I definitely wanted to do. And when I moved to Hollywood and I met James and Sandor, that kind of put it in my head to give it another go.
And you met them at Amoeba.
Yeah,
Okay.
They both worked at Amoeba. So did there was another member before we were called Harasser. There was another guy who also worked at Amoeba, who still works at Amoeba, at the information desk.
Oh, okay.
Robert Blackburn.
Okay.
So back then, I mean, when I started at Amoeba, there was like over 300 employees. I mean, it was by far the biggest record store in the world. But it was just crazy the way things were consumed back then, how much CDs were still selling, vinyl starting to become very big again. So we would go to lunch together. They called us the Black Circle because we were all the four guys who really loved black metal.
Right on.
So Robert was like a second guitarist. We still never had bass. But Robert had some issues. I think a tinnitus, tendonitis.
Okay.
Tendonitis in his arm. And so it was difficult. And he was, I think, more interested in like real song structure, where our approach again was like, why does there have to be a solo? Why does it have to be, verse, pre-chorus,
Sure.
We'll do whatever we want. And we were very punk in that sense in our approach. So once we just simplified it to one guitar, it made it really easy to write music.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually cool that you mentioned that, because first time I heard Harasser, I did get a big punk vibe off of it. And that's, I come up in punk, so like it attracted me right away, And that being said, like, was that a conscious thing that you included in the music structures, or like, or any of the influences of yours in Harasser?
I don't know if it was conscious. I always thought of influences of not being like a direct thing. Like I've never wanted to sound like another band.
Yeah.
But I think we were very much influenced. God, there are so many bands now. I remember we used to have a list like on like back in the day of like the MySpace music page and shit. I think because we had such diverse tastes, that everything really did influence us. But we took it whatever direction it was going to go naturally, and that was the best thing for us because. We could so easily play together. We could write a song every rehearsal.
Nice.
But no one ever wanted to play the song twice. Even if we were getting ready for a show, we would rehearse. When things were really going, we would rehearse twice a week, and we would like hang out all night. And
that's cool.
It was probably the best experience I've ever had playing music, being in a band, the camaraderie, the real brotherhood, which is, to me, what a band should be. I mean, it shouldn't be, well, he's the best at this instrument or he's a good fit. I want someone who, like, I actually care about and give a shit about and like, hang out with. Yeah. Not just because it's going to be the right fit for the band, because I never want to look at it as something... that it's a commodity that you're trying to sell yourself. If you liked the music, great. I do it because I like it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I think rehearsal is often probably the best time with the band because of those things. Because again, the camaraderie you have with each other, and just the release that it is to play music. So
Right on.
That's cool.
What are some of your earlier influences? As you were coming up, I mean, obviously, did you start with punk? Did you start with heavy metal? Was something before that even? Like, what's your maybe first memory of music where you went, that's something I care about and that's something I want to keep pursuing?
Definitely being in the car with my family as a little kid.
Right on.
And that was the same shit over and over again, the same 10 cassettes that fit in like the console. And it was like the Beach Boys, and it was the Letterman, and it was John Denver, and then it was like the Big Chill soundtrack. So that was giving me a bunch of Motown,
Sure.
which was like, that was different. But my folks didn't really play much music in the house unless maybe it was Christmas, and it would be the same bullshit Christmas music. But then I had two older brothers, and it was the 80s. So then we're listening to stuff that was like an MTV video and things that were there on the radio, but I'm taking from them. And my first thing was definitely like rock and like glam metal.
Okay.
Being from Southern California, and at that time, if I could get like a flyer that was posted up from the Strip, from whoever it was, if it was Rad or Dawkins or Poison or Faster Pussycat, I'm like, that was like awesome. Like this was on the Strip, and now it's on my bedroom wall.
Yeah.
But I loved all of those bands, and as well, then very much being the white kid from the suburb, getting into like hip hop. And gangster rap. I loved LL Cool J as a kid. loved the Beastie Boys, but then I'm listening, like, you know, we're getting into like NWA.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And Eazy-E actually used to live in the town where I grew up in. I saw him a couple times at the Sizzler, both times with 2 chicks with him.
Nice.
And he had that old school like cell phone, like that Zach Morris.
Oh,
Saved
yeah.
by
Oh, the big
Bell.
one?
And it'd be sitting right on the table. I was like, oh shit, dude, that's fucking easy, dude. He's at the Sizzler.
He likes all-you-can-eat shrimp just like I do.
Yeah. He likes the breadsticks here as well.
So I was still probably pretty closed-minded in terms of what I was really willing to get into. I can remember not liking Judas Priest first time I heard him because I didn't like high vocals, and that was something that carried with me for a little while. And it's so weird. Like I remember not wanting to hear Bolt Thrower. I had never heard Bolt Thrower because I looked at the art. I'm like, what's the He-Man art? And I was just like, and I'm like, why do you care? Why is that a limitation? Like, I don't know. Usually when you're young, it's like someone has to like play it for you. So if you didn't have a friend or a sibling, a relative,
Like
or
the
some-
soft intro kind of.
yeah, you know, someone to play it for you first, like it was kind of harder to, you know, blaze your own path.
Yeah.
But slowly I did. I mean, by the time I was like 15 or 16, I was just craving the craziest shit I could get, you know, really getting it, you know, back then it would be like, you know, I'm Death and Morbid Angel and, you know, Entombed and
Yeah, yeah.
Cannibal Corpse and shit like that. Yeah.
Where does the black metal come in for you?
I was at Rasputin's, and you know, not a lot of black metal bands, like the kind of like second to third wave bands, really came to the States, and occasionally they did, and I would hear about those in San Francisco. They would play. There's a club. I don't even know if it's still there. I think it is the Covered Wagon, the CW Saloon.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And when they would do extreme metal shows, I believe they would call the club Lucifer's Hammer. And I want to say Dark Funeral, 98 was one of the first that came over. I remember seeing Emperor in 99.
Very cool.
Yep.
With you know, with Samuth on guitar, he could get into the country.
Yeah.
Where later he had a hard time getting in the country. That was the package tour with Pecadum, which is, you know, Ison's wife
right.
and her brother and his brother-in-law Pecadum, and then it was Einherr and Witchery.
Damn.
But
Yeah.
but not a lot of bands came through, so I became aware of this thing called black metal. I think Century Black being a really important thing that happened as an imprint with Century Media to reissue some of that like second wave stuff that happened, you know, specifically Norwegian stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and having that really stark, basic, like graphic design layout for all the Century Black releases, you know, you were just like, I'll take anything that they're doing. Like, oh, let me hear Dodomsgard, you know, like,
Right.
fuck yeah, Gorgoroth, whatever. And just kind of diving in that way. But then a big thing happened called the book Lords of Chaos.
Right.
I remember that. Yeah.
Obviously controversial.
Yeah.
You know, obviously there's things that are, you know, taken or embellished on
yeah,
untruths and
Just a
things.
little bit, yeah.
But for me, it was like a real introduction to read about some of this stuff.
Right, right.
So that was, I mean, that was a thing that just really drove me like hardcore into it, and very open-minded to almost anything black metal at the time. And then, of course, just being lucky enough to get into the greats, you know, Dark Throne, Immortal, Mayhem, Emperor.
All the staples and stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I remember a friend of mine who played death metal in bands. He first brought over a copy of Descent magazine, and I remember like looking through it, and I'm like, who are all these goofy-looking dudes? You know, like why are they wearing makeup? He's like, no, man, the music's super brutal. And it turns out Descent magazine was the magazine Stephen O'Malley worked on.
Oh, no
Yeah,
way.
way back in the day. So it was him doing reviews of bands, right? And like he'd have goofy reviews for some of them, and some of them were serious. But the one issue, it was an issue that had the Emperor Enslaved split, and I remember getting that and just nonstop listening, just
Yeah.
all the time. And I would take like the band's names off the back because it was buy the demo here, you know. And yeah, it was
The mail
second-
order of all of it all. That's what I remember. Is like, yeah, you look in the back and it's like, you know, you have to check it off and then send it in and
Yep.
hope you know.
with like a money order.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Self-addressed stamped envelope and stuff.
Yeah. Being a kid, man, people just don't understand now. You know,
Yeah,
there wasn't no Hot Topic when we were kids. You're just going into magazines and ordering like a weird, that's a cool necklace, and
Yep.
you know, getting your shirts. I would when I was in high school, my mom had like given up trying to like get me to wear anything like acceptable. You know, I just wanted to wear boots and metal shirts, and my mom would buy me like jeans and then just give me like $200 or $300. I go to Hollywood, I go down to Melrose in like the early '90s, and I'd just buy a bunch of metal shirts, and every year I just had a new stack of metal shirts to wear all year.
Nice.
Right on.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say. So when you meet up with Sander and James, musically, is that? I mean, obviously that you, like you said, all three of you were into black metal. Is just like immediately when you meet them, is it like I have found like my musical partner in a way like that?
It wasn't immediate, but
Okay.
it was. I think first it was just like we were such fans of music,
Right on.
And then we had a friendship, and then that spawned into like trying to put a musical act together.
Okay,
But
because James had been in stuff prior from Harasser.
Oh yeah, James
Sander
was
the
kind of a
same?
known dude from Louisville,
Right.
Kentucky, where he was from. As everyone there still will call him Roach, and that's how he was known. And they had a really big punk scene, and he was in a few different grind bands. But of course, I think everyone now who has heard of it knows that James is Lord Fowl, which was also news to me when. Because he hadn't, it wasn't something he really bragged about, that he was, probably this pioneer of like American one-man black metal, which as we know became such a phenomenon.
Right.
But also what I didn't know, because I was a big fan of Nargaroth, and in our rehearsal room from this live record that I had bought when I was in Holland, it was called Crushing Some Belgian Scum, and it was a live Nargaroth record. And I had the poster up in our rehearsal space, not knowing that, even on that record, he's singing a song that James wrote. And I had no idea. And then when it all kind of blew up, and then we like go on like YouTube, and there's like all these people covering I Burn For You, because it was that like influential or known as a song. And then I'm like, fuck, man. So let me go to like Black Metal East Krieg and like where it's the studio version, and I pull it out, and everything it's not in English except for the part where he talks about the influence of I Burn For You, and he's like, I bow down to Lord Fowl, I could never write a song this good, and you're just like, he's talking about James. And I'm like, this is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
So that was, and we'd been doing the band for years at that point.
Oh, wow.
And I had no clue
Oh, wow.
about that history.
That's cool.
I mean, Harasser are one of the great LA live bands, in my opinion. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen you guys. Oh no, you guys always put on great shows.
That was, yeah.
Always. And I always thought was interesting too is something like you could be put on an experimental noise show, you could be put on a metal show, you could be put on a punk show. You always seem to fit. It didn't seem to matter, and that music just worked with whatever was going on.
Yeah, I think because we were so open-minded. In fact, the early shows, first few years, like we rarely played with metal bands. It was almost always a noise show. We'd be playing with other weird acts and stuff, which we loved. I mean, we realized later that we probably, in terms of like, selling ourselves or marketing ourselves, which I don't think we were really interested in, but we realized that we probably could turn people onto our music if we just put ourselves in the position to do it, which is like, let's play with other metal bands, people who,
Sure.
shit like that. So, eventually we did,
Right.
And especially towards the end, I think we almost exclusively were like, well, we'll open for Mortuary Drape. Sure.
If you're gonna twist our arm,
Okay. Absu. Okay. We'll play.
sure.
To go back a little bit more, after you actually started Amoeba, when you moved back, but then you went to another store, right?
I did. So I'd moved back to Southern California to Hollywood in early '02, and was working at Amoeba. And towards the end of 2008, I had been really friendly with Hydra Head Records once Aaron and Mark had moved from Boston to LA, which had happened a few years before. And I was such a big fan of just all the shit they put out and Aaron's art and just the way they curated that label. They had an idea about starting a record store. So we got into talks to do that. And that is eventually what became, Vacation Vinyl.
Yeah. So I know a lot of folks know Vacation or remember Vacation from hosting some memorable shows.
For sure.
Yeah.
A lot of great vinyl. And I remember stepping in there the first time and wishing I had the lottery's worth of money.
Right?
Yeah. There was one time that they posted, this was more towards the end run of Vacation, but they posted about having a Neurosis' Time of Grace. And I remember I left work early just to go look at the record.
Yeah.
Yeah, going in there was never a matter of if I'm going to buy it. I had to decide what I wasn't going to buy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or what I could not afford.
What am I going to give up this month so that I could buy this record?
Because it was never going and looking at you. The selection there was just, you either knew it or it was like, I don't know what that is, but holy moly, that thing looks amazing, dude. And it's just like, yeah. So, and you're right, live shows, I saw plenty there. That was amazing. Got Met Electric Wizard there. That was cool. I think that was closer to the end there. But yeah, great little record store. I love that place. And for like Nick said, great selection and great live bands.
Oh, awesome. That. I mean, as sour as things went for me with that venture, there's no regrets. And some of the best memories of my life. And there's times it was at least an in-store every week. Some weeks there'd be 2 or 3 in-stores, just to bring people in. And some of those in-stores were pretty crazy, if I remember right.
So were you at I'm assuming you were at the original location, right? The one by like Wacko?
Yeah, so the one that's like Hollywood and Vermont-ish, that strip, which is totally different now, and it was kind of just beginning that real change at the time, which is partly why we left that spot and got the place in Sunset Junction, because we really weren't pulling people in. Now I think that location would be great because of all the changes and the different businesses and development that have happened there. But it is like a bus hub right there. So we did think we were going to get a lot of foot traffic, but back in 2009, it just hadn't really come to fruition yet there. So it was better to move on, which was right next door to the comic book shop, which were the other half of the ownership. The 2 Daves at Secret Headquarters were half, and then Aaron and Mark at Hydra Head were the other half of the ownership. And that was the thing that saved the store, honestly, was moving to the Sunset Junction and just, as we know, like a very kind of hip area. And of a time when I think, vinyl was making a really big splash, whether it was a fad, something people just collected, or the people who were really diehard into it. But I started the place literally out of my apartment.
Wow.
I really didn't want to use any connections that I had from Amoeba, so I would just email labels. I went direct with almost anyone I could. Learning a lot of lessons along the way on how the business really does work, especially when it comes to the major labels and their distribution, and how kind of pig-headed they were, still kind of focused on the way they used to do business, not really willing to adapt to the idea that now here is something that is actually growing in popularity and sales, this format of vinyl that we, shunned years ago.
Right.
But we were selling to Sam Goody, Musicland, Tower Records. We were selling to Chain, the warehouse music. Now, where the music's going, brick and mortar stores were mom and pop, which meant that you had to really diversify your accounts and how you were willing to get your records stocked in a store. And I don't think they were ready for that. I think they were happy when they were making hand over fist, ripping artists off, ripping the consumer off. So to stay vital, they had to succumb to like catering to these stores, these little boutique stores that were willing to stock their product, because the CDs weren't selling anymore. Right. But we have this one thing that everyone seems to be excited about again.
Yeah. I'm only slightly familiar with that whole process. I used to work at a record shop in Monterey Park for a couple of years.
Oh, right on.
And I was in charge of ordering like the heavier punk into metal stuff, you know? So like when Southern Lord came out, I was on top of that.
Yeah.
And I remember mainly not getting paid. So I would just order an extra copy of everything for myself, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool on some parts, talking to distros and what they would say yes to, what they would say no to, you know, and what they were willing to send to us, and that whole process was
it's much more involved, I think, than what a lot of people understand about how you are going to curate a store like that.
Yeah.
Particularly with a focus on analog. You know, I think CDs were probably they're smaller, they weigh less, you know, easier to ship for sure. And it was definitely that's the way people consumed music, physical music back then was CDs. So moving on to something else where like the guys who had the comic book shop, well, you order from one distributor and that shit comes out on Wednesday.
Okay.
He's like, how many places are you ordering from? I'm like, over 100.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that was kind of the idea behind starting this store. I would struggle to get Amoeba to stock certain things that I knew I wanted to buy, but it could be such a limited release. Like, you know, you're lucky to get a few copies. Mm-hmm. So they don't see, well, why are we doing that? It seems like a lot of work just to sell a couple things and then you're starting all over again. But to me, that was what I wanted to do, was I wanted to get the cool shit that everyone else was having to mail order. I wanted to have it as much as I could.
Sure, yeah.
Bring that into the store through any means I could. So if it was a one stop that had it, if I could go direct, if I could figure out how to get it cheaper, because while I went direct with this label, if I went through their actual distro, then I'm not paying the shipping, or the shipping's less.
Yeah.
Always calculating that into like your price. You're like, well, I only ordered 15 records and it cost, you know, $30 to ship the box. So, I mean, if I sell them all for this same markup, I'm actually not really going to make money, or I'm barely going to make anything. And it is still a business for sure.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, mission accomplished, because the idea of diversifying, you know, what you found in that store, it was that. I mean, for sure.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah. And,
It was like the musical equivalent of, this is a story that I know gets repeated many times over, the mom and pop video store, where
For sure.
certain sections get, you know, they are curated by the employees of the store. And it's like, well, this week, this is what Mike likes, and it's all these cool horror movies, right?
Right.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's what you were doing at the record shops.
And I worked at a mom and pop video store as
Oh,
well
nice.
when I was a teenager.
Hell
So, yeah. I love that special attention that, you know, a business of this type, you know, is going to be staffed by younger people that are passionate.
Yeah.
And those are people who are willing to take the time. Like, no, I made this little crazy section of just Japanese psychedelic. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna take care of it every week. I'm gonna pull the CDs that get stuffed in the regular rock section and put them over here, because I know that there's people who are gonna come and check this out, and they might not sell otherwise, but I'm really into it, and I want to turn other people onto it.
Yeah.
Well, you always knew at Amoeba, if you saw Doom Death on a record,
Yep,
you were like,
yeah.
okay, it may not turn into my absolute favorite, but I'm definitely not going to hate it.
There
That's
were-
for sure.
that.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
There were two people's recommendations that I always considered: Doom Death and one Scott Carlson.
Yeah.
Oh,
Which-
yeah. Professor Chops.
Professor Chops, which
Professor Chops.
at one point I ended up getting yelled at by him at Amoeba for my musical selection, and I was like, "Man, I'm buying this record. What are you yelling at me for?" You know. But
I always
that's
thought
a-
that was neat about Amoeba, where you could do that, where you walked in and it was like recommended by, like, oh, that's really cool. Okay, like you're saying, like in a video store type of way, and it was like, not only am I looking through what I want, and then you see like, oh, well, I know who Doom Death is, and okay, fuck it, let me try this out. How bad could it be? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just a neat way to kind of, because like you said, you know, in those early days, there is this experiment where you go like, well, I'm gonna buy it and hopefully I like it. You know what I mean? And it's
Right.
like to have the kind of seal of approval from Doom Death. You go, all right, I feel
Yeah.
a little bit
Yeah.
better about getting that.
You guys are
know?
too kind.
No, hey.
you helped shaped some of our musical flavors. So
Oh, awesome. And you know, that's what I really do miss about not working in a record store, and that idea, you know, especially kind of early internet and stuff, and
Yeah, yeah.
downloading that it was a meeting place. This was like a place of community where you might meet the guy who's going to be in your band, and
Right,
you
right.
might you might talk to someone who tells you about something you had no idea about.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
now is your favorite band, and maybe you have 3 tattoos of it. Like it was just like a crazy melting pot of a place of music and art and culture, and community in that sense of bringing all those people together. And I really miss that. I miss working in a place where we're just going to talk shit about pop culture and music and get turned on to stuff every day and just be kids your whole life.
Is that something that the store did it come with, or is that something the store promotes in a way? Because like I have yet to go there and ever buy records, and the guy behind the counter or the girl behind the counter just goes and have a nice day. They always go, oh great, oh I love these guys, oh they're so good, and they want to engage with you about what you're buying. And hey, by the way, if you like this, maybe you know what I mean. Is that something the store encourages, or is just that's what came with because the people that, like you said, are so passionate?
I think, I definitely think it's something the store would promote as like the idea behind this is how we do business. This is how we have commerce. Is that
certainly
you don't make a ton of money in a record store, but you are going to attract those people who want to be there because of those types of interactions that they can have with people. Right. It's fun. Again, I know a lot of people who don't like their job, right. and that was a bummer because I loved my job.
Right on.
I never dreaded going to work. It was and I knew I wasn't going to make a lot of money, but I don't think money buys happiness, but records kind of do.
Yeah, they do.
Relationships with people do.
Yeah.
And being in like a really diverse business like that with your peers, the things we would talk about in terms of where people were coming from, whether it was, a cultural thing, a gender thing, a political thing, having all these people with their own experiences, life experiences, their own opinions, and able to you really learned. It was a humbling place where you're like, you know what, I can keep my mouth shut here and really learn a lot about the rest of the world.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
As a a white man.
Sure. And enjoy great music at the same time.
Right? Yeah.
So I know when you were around vacation, this is when some folks who are aware of what you look like, they might have spotted you in a couple of documentaries. Did that come just from knowing the people that had started up the store, or?
No. Ken, and why am I blanking on his last name right now? Ken had started this Hydra Head thing before I'd ever done Vacation, but I knew Hydra Head, and they had already moved out here from Boston, and we knew each other from shows. So he had already started interviewing a lot of people who had been on Hydra Head and putting together this documentary. I mean, he worked on it for years. And then I don't remember at one point, it was really just a passion for him about the music he liked. He loved Godspeed You Black Emperor.
Yeah.
So let's go talk to them. Let's go up to Montreal and let's talk about Constellation and what was the place? The Hotel de Tango.
I think, yeah.
And then he loved he loved Neurot. So it ended up being that focus. What was weird was that there was no Southern Lord, which so I had met him, and he had interviewed me multiple times, and then as it went on for years, then we eventually had Vacation, and then there was even more footage. Yeah,
that's cool.
Now with Harasser essentially ends when James moves back. Now is Harasser done or?
I wouldn't say done.
Okay,
we never said that.
But with James moving back, that obviously.
Yeah, I would love to make music again.
Right
even if it was just recordings that were released and never another live show. It's not something I push at all. We've all done our own thing. And also, I don't know how much interest there is from fans. It was like I was talking to a friend of mine, a musician, and we were talking about the label Numero and these box sets that come out, and some of the stuff's like I just don't know who really wants that Boilermaker box set. I used to work with the drummer, And, they weren't a bad band. They were a cool band. But, there wasn't that much interest back then. And now they're getting a box set. I was like, if they did a Harasser box set, I'm like, I bet like 25 people would be really stoked.
You'd be looking at
Two
two
of
of them.
Two right here.
But, other than that, you kind of just wasted your money on it.
Well, I think that's also a thing with like these box sets that come out, because I saw like a few people talking about some of the recent additions to their vinyl collections. And it's like Touch and Go just released a box set for somebody, and
like the Scratch Acid box.
that's the one.
Yeah.
Yes. So I was just talking about
which is
this.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
but like I don't know too many people that know of Scratch Acid, which cool, because now they get to discover something awesome.
Yeah.
But also like what like how because I also just kind of stepped onto Scratch Acid's discography recently. But if a label is willing to put out their music in a collection, I think that's pretty awesome, because at some point...
for that band especially, from where they were coming from, and the popularity of just Jesus Lizard, I think, going back to that Texas scene,
Yeah,
they were an original band for sure.
I also think that something like if a Harasser box set would come out, there are enough people now that are more and more curious about music, maybe a bit more so than before, because just the way music is consumed now.
True.
There's so many different ways to do so. Whereas if somebody comes across your music either online or a YouTube video or something, guaranteed somebody's going to be like, wow, that was awesome. I want more. Where can I get all of it at once? Right.
Right.
And then there's the Harasser box set, right?
Yeah, there's definitely that. And I think that's also, I think I said it in the Blood, Sweat, and Vinyl documentary. It's like you make this music, this art, and I think, I would like to think that it is actually a selfish thing, and the cherry on top is that someone else enjoys it, and and then you've left that out there for people to discover, and you've left that as a bit of like a legacy.
Yes,
and,
totally.
And however much someone cares, or a few people care, and that's always been like really cool to me. Like, I've been random places where people have like recognized me.
Yeah.
And I was in like the Joshua Tree Saloon like 3 years ago, and like the guy waiting on our table. I didn't know him, I'm there with my in-laws and my wife, and he's like, and my wife is somewhat of a famous musician, and people know her. I'm not famous. I think I had my day in L.A. as like as a scenester guy, but this guy's like, hey man, you're the singer Harasser. And it was like in front of like, my in-laws. I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh man, I fucking saw you guys at the 5-Star Bar, man. Fucking crazy, dude. You jumped off the stage. I'm like, yeah, man. Hard to keep me on a stage.
That's really cool, man.
Have you, I don't know if this is a thing that you might have done. Have you often visited other record shops and been like, I could do this one better?
Yes.
All modesty aside.
I doubt the guy who has this record shop in Idlewild will hear this, but man, is it depressing going into his store. And I know he's doing his best, and I also don't want to be that guy to be like judgmental. He's not asking for help.
Right.
The first time I was in there, I was just like looking around. I'm like, so are you just buying everything from a one-stop? And he's like, he didn't, I don't think he knew the term one-stop.
Wow.
And he goes, well, I just get everything from Cobra Side. I'm like, oh, you get it from Randy. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I know Randy. Okay. But I'm like, yeah, that was like the level of curation that shop went to. Everything I'm buying at a premium from a one-stop, and then charging an arm and a leg for it. In whatever, used collections I guess he gets in.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I was in there last year, and I actually found a record that was very fairly priced. It was a Husker Du. It was it Candy Apple Gray? I've been wanting like a nice copy of it, and he had like a promo like cutout of it in like mint shape for like $45. And I'm like, well, I mean, this is about what it would cost me if I could find it from an honest seller on Discogs who graded it right in the shipping. So it's like, fuck it, I'll buy that. But yeah, it's hard for me to go in that store. It was always hard to go into other record stores. I mean, when you worked, particularly at Amoeba,
At the record shop.
you know, you never had a shortage of stuff you wanted to buy.
Yeah.
So having any additional money, and of course, buying at another record store meant you didn't get 30% off.
That's another, yeah.
You know, I really, from being a used buyer and a vinyl pricer, I don't know if it got any better than that. At the time when the lockdown happened, I had my own desk. It was this own room just for vinyl, just for LPs, actually. And no one was allowed in there if you weren't a vinyl. And I had my own desk. It was just covered in a bunch of toys. I probably had 200 or 300 records stuffed around my desk.
Wow.
And and I was like, fuck. And all I cared about when we had to pack that place up is that all my shit came back to me. Of course, the new store was not my own desk or anything like that, as everything was downsized. There's hardly any space other than that sales floor. So it's very tiny in that sense, where the Sunset Boulevard location was like more space than we needed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was gigantic.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. I mean, there was a dumbwaiter and a freight elevator.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then, loading dock with giant roll-up doors on both sides, on Cahuenga and on Ivar.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Big green room, fucking, yeah.
No, I remember, again, as they do, they engage you. I was checking out, and a lady told me that as an employee, she got to take home like 3 CDs a month or something like that. And I remember you broke it down.
It's even more than that. So
Please.
It's called the loan log. Every employee gets this blue book loan log. It's just lined like sheets of paper where you date. There's a place to date, a place to sign, and then what it is, and then how much the price tag was. You could borrow 10 things at a time. So this could be anything used, anything. And then there was a thing called Blue Lines, which is basically a sealed used item. Okay. Something we got over the buy counter sealed. So it had a white tag with a blue line through it, but it wasn't new. It wasn't from a distributor. You couldn't borrow that. It had to be something that was used and opened, but it could be whatever you wanted. It couldn't be a wall record, but it could, this movie just came out. Well, I don't have to rent it. Don't have to wait for streaming. That wasn't really even a thing then. No. But yeah, that was like a huge fucking perk of the job. And for me, I would number my books because I would go through them so fast, because this started getting into the days of like ripping CDs. And that was when I started like building up all these external hard drives.
Yep.
So I would bring home 10 CDs every night and rip them.
Yeah,
it was like a
when she
it was like a ritual.
When she told me, I was like, I damn near went home and went, "Hey, honey, I think I'm quitting my job and I'm gonna go try to work at Amoeba. We won't make as much money, I promise, and we may have to get rid of the house, but I'll have way more music. It'll be great."
Totally.
Yeah, I was just like, my God, what I could do with that.
And I think that's what makes me one of the very rare people in this world that doesn't need streaming ever. I have 2 external hard drives that are 10 terabytes. I have just an insane library of music, and that's mostly that. It's reference. It's on the go. It's through a Bluetooth speaker. It can be plugged into your car. Right on. Obviously I like records, and that can be more like home listening.
Sure.
Yeah. But I would never need an Apple Music or a Spotify account. I just don't. I can just put everything onto my phone that I want, the newest shit that I have, or just the playlists that I make.
Sure.
And which it's funny because really what we're doing right now, this is mostly what I listen to when I'm in a car. I listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
Music has really turned into something, I think maybe because of my age and my commute being so short in a little mountain town, that I listen to music at home when I can focus on it, when I can really dive in and listen. And then music outside of home can be that like extra thing,
Secondary.
Yeah.
So I think I'm getting this number right, but in one of your other interviews, I heard it was about 2,500 vinyl records, or is it more now?
Oh, I have more than that now. I'm probably over 5,000.
Oh wow.
and it's really accumulated now because I used to turn over a lot, having the job I had.
Yeah.
You always wanted something new, something that came in used, you'd been looking for, a new release that came out. And there was always something on your shelf that you're like, I can part with this.
Yeah.
So let me bring it in, get a trade slip, get a good deal on the trade.
Right on.
Then I get the item I want at a discount because I'm an employee. So I would turn over a lot of stuff. Now that it's been 3 years since I've worked in a record store, I sell some stuff on Discogs occasionally, and I have a couple bags to bring to Amoeba right now. I just, I live 2.5 hours away, so just hasn't happened recently. Now they seem to be piling up even more. I know I've sold so many in my life. If I've never sold a record, I would have easily had over 10,000 records.
Wow.
But now, man, I miss those days. I'm paying the premium through mail order. That's for sure, man.
You're like, this is what it feels like.
Us civilians, how we've been collecting.
Right?
Yeah,
So I didn't see how the other half lived, man. Shit.
Now you know why we don't have thousands just yet. We're working on it though. Now, from when is your time in Actuary? Is this at the same time with Harasser, or is this after?
It was like tail end of Harasser. Okay. I remember just one or 2 weeks. I had Harasser, Actuary, and Comm Rehearsal.
Oh, okay.
I had all three of them happen in a week.
Wow.
Like a couple different times. I had been doing Actuary after Dustin invited me, and that kind of just was progressing naturally in terms of me originally just doing vocals to looping vocals to actually, starting to get some pedals and things and to adding to the noise. That was really fun because there had been like kind of a hiatus in Harasser. James had moved back to Louisville for a while. His dad was really ill.
Right.
So it was nice for me to like now have this other outlet and to explore that because it's funny in that community. It's like, everyone's like, you're always just like a metal guy. And I'm like, yeah, but I definitely have roots in this stuff too. And that was super fun playing in Actuary. That really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and probably part of the reason I'm doing the Experimental Music Fest in Idlewild is the things that I saw within doing noise music, playing like the NorCal Noise Fest in Sacramento, getting to meet like Astro in Japan, play with Astro 2 shows in Japan from CCCC and Kenny from Facial Mess and who does Like Weeds, and you meet so many cool people from all over the world with the same concept that music can be anything. Music doesn't have to have boundaries or limits. And in fact, the nastier you can make something, and the less people like it, even better. Like, I don't know. I certainly have my guilty pleasures. I like pop music. I like something with a really good hook.
Oh, yeah.
I still fucking listen to the shit out of the Get Up Kids, man.
Nice.
I got to tell you. So very, very weird for some people probably to know that about me. But I also really like something that will just fucking annoy the fuck out of people and piss them off. I've always seen that, particularly in experimental music. I think from a listener perspective, to sitting and listening to something is totally different than witnessing a performance. And to me, a performance is important. A performance needs to be engaging. It needs to be entertaining. And I've always tried to make it visceral in that sense, whether it was in a construct of a band like guitar and drums, or if it was electronics and more of a noise type experience, electronic experience. You still want to engage the crowd to an extent, or whatever that may be.
No, certainly, again, something you very much accomplished. I mean, there's many people, especially with like Harassers, like, is he going to do the blood? Oh, he didn't do it, but he did these other things. That was really cool.
That shit got old.
Well, I can imagine, but it added to it because it was like, I don't know how they're going to do tonight. And that was kind of a neat thing.
I almost didn't either. There was times, no one ever told anyone what to look like.
Sure.
This all just kind of came naturally. We weren't like a true black metal band, and I don't think we were trying to be. We were trying to be us.
Right.
And so when I first did the black makeup without the white, obviously that'd been done.
Right.
But I was like, well, I don't want to try to look like a corpse painted like Scandinavian black metal artist. I want to do something fucking just fun. And then at first I got a little bit of blood, and then I was just like, I would go to Hollywood Costume and Toy on Hollywood Boulevard, and I just started fucking buying it by the gallon. And then it was like, well, why apply this in like a makeup type of way? I'm like, how much more shocking is it just to pour it on? And then that became a thing.
Yeah.
But then after a while, I mean, when we toured, I think I only did it one night out of we did like 10 shows in like 13 days. And I think I only did it like one night because it just never seemed right. And there was a point where I don't want to be like a clown kind of a deal. I mean, it wasn't real blood. No. For a lot of good reasons, it was not real blood.
Wateen's a little disappointed in you, but that's all right.
Yes, I saw that Wateen show at the Knitting Factory on that tour after they had gotten in trouble for killing the pigeons. Yep. And they would just take all those clothes and they just throw it in like big trash bags and put it on the next night. They're like stiff from the blood, and it was nasty.
My band was playing in one of the other rooms, and we had to share one of the, how the dressing room was in the back.
Yeah.
So when we went to the back, it stunk like halfway down the hall, and our curiosity got the best of us, and we ended up walking into their dressing room, seeing their trash bags, their cooler that they had, and I was like, oh, whoever's cleaning this up is gonna hate.
Right? Yeah. When we played with Mortuary Drape, I mean, we were nobody, you know what I mean? And of course, but I wanted to play a bill with Mortuary Drape, and they've been around fucking forever. Yeah. And we were playing at Globos, and we're playing, the big room, the downstairs room, the high ceilings, and going down to the back patio, you go down the stairs. Right at the bottom before you go outside, that's the green room at Globos. And we shared it, and it's pretty big. But after we had played and we're down there, we're hanging out, and they didn't speak a lot of English, Italian, and it was more like, you guys need to get out because it's our time. And it's like, you're the headliners for sure.
Sure.
And then this big tarp got spread out. They had a huge mirror on one of the walls there, and they put the tarp right in front of the mirror. I remember being upstairs. Can't remember who the band playing was, but everyone started to get sick upstairs. At first, it was like, dude, I think it's like a sewage leak. Like something's backed up. Like we weren't sure, but it was so rancid. It was from the pig blood.
Holy Christ.
And so I remember coming while they were on stage. I go back to the green room and I still have a picture of it. It just looks like someone was murdered.
Oh wow!
And it was insane. But people were like people were nauseous and getting physically sick from the smell of that blood.
Well, if the desire to get covered in blood ever comes back, Farmer John is like right down the street.
Right? Well, you guys know this place. Isn't it like the Hostess factory over here?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that has like that super sweet smell mixed with like
the rendering.
Sewage.
The rendering. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a, I was saying like a blueberry muffin like wrapped in dog shit.
Yep.
And it's so foul.
Honest, it's like coming up on a dead body. Where it's that bittersweet smell where it stays on your tongue and it's not a good taste, but then you keep smelling it and you can kind of get used to it.
Yeah.
There were evenings here where
the nighttime definitely seems like it's when it comes out more.
Yes. Well, I was going to say here at the fancy rehearsal room building, there are times when I prefer one side of the street because it's super sweet smelling. Cross the street and you're in the stench of death. Yeah.
Totally, man.
So, sorry.
No. Go.
There was Actuary, and then was there anything else that came after that? You said Calm.
So
right?
I had just started Calm around the time. It was like the timeline gets a little bit screwed up, but Harasser was playing less and less. I was in Actuary. James had then moved. And I had started Calm. We had started putting together the components of the band, kind of like recording on our phones at like amp rehearsal or something. And so that was going. Then I I was really into Calm. That was definitely a passion project for me, and me trying to do things the way people said they should be done, which wasn't necessarily me. You know what I mean? Like Harasser didn't do things like that, and I loved my experience with Harasser. But what if you did do the things that meant maybe you could fucking go to Europe or you know, play Roadburn, or I don't know, or like just get to travel and get to do the fun stuff, because that was like more lucrative to me than you know, than selling a lot of records or being famous or making any type of money. It was having those types of experiences. And let's face it, you know, Calm's like whole thing was like writing super slow, long songs. Like you're not gonna play, you know, 20-minute songs at like 50 beats a minute and really turn a lot of people on.
Sony doesn't come a calling.
Something
like that.
You know, so, but I eventually quit Actuary and was just pursuing Calm, because that was definitely where my head was at. Actuary, I was brought in. It was never really my project.
Okay.
And Calm was something that I was starting, you know, I was really putting together most of the band. It was Henry and I had the idea, and it started with us. But then I mostly found the other members to join us. And it was really fun for a while, and I don't think we would have even made that debut record, the only record I'm on, if it wasn't for the lockdown and like that extra money that we got, because we didn't have anything to do. Now we had a home recording studio in Sun Valley that we were going to. It had a screened in like patio where we could like all distance from, and then the garage was like was the studio, and it had like an ISO booth for vocals, and then the back bedroom was the control room. And we had all the time in the world to do it. There was so many other things that happened to the band and the lineup at the time, but the fact that none of us had anywhere to go or anything to do, and we already had this album written, like, let's record it. But I think with other tensions, again, it would not have happened under like a deal, like, because we still paid a shit ton of money to make it, which I've never spent money like that. I think every member of that band probably spent nearly $5,000 each, like from studio time to how it got mastered, all this shit, and then and all the compromises that go with making a record when you have that many people in a band. But yeah, it was really the lockdown that made that happen. I think if otherwise, I think the core group of people would have broke up before that, and I think that's why it happened so quickly after the record came out, or why I was kind of fed up with how things were going.
Now, you said it was you and Henry putting the band together. So obviously doing something, obviously your tastes in music are so diverse, but this was obviously a conscious effort to say, not a black metal thing, not a punk thing, not a noise thing. I want to do now a kind of a doom project, and I want to go that way. Was that just like because I want to try something new, or that's where my head was at the time, or?
I think my head had always been there in a certain capacity, Doom had obviously grown in terms of like a genre that people identified with. It was kind of weird because I remember a friend of mine, he played in Earth. He's on Hex.
Oh, right.
It's
my favorite from
Can't remember all that. He was in Master Musician to Bukkake.
Oh, okay. The name.
Which also did an in-store.
Right on.
That was hard to fit.
I can imagine.
Anyway, John, I think his name was, anyway, I'm kind of blanking on names right now. He had moved down here from Seattle, and like he was at the buy counter, and he's talking to me, and he's just like, well, what's like, the Doom scene? I think he also played in like ASVA, if you remember ASVA.
Oh, yeah, the name.
So, and I'm like, Doom scene? I'm like, no, like that, I'm like, no, I mean, and as we all know, LA, like the scenes are so diverse and spread out because of the geography of it. Yeah. Like you can still have your group of like thrash kids, and you're going to have your group of like extreme metal people or whatever. But it was hard to have like kind of like a tight knit scene. Right. But an idea that Doom was ever going to be that popular was weird. But it had kind of gotten to that point.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved it. I'd flirted a little bit with it with some of the stuff James and I did with Dargar. And and for Henry and I, it was like a conscious decision that we want to make like a really, a metal-y Doom that is super slow, and punishing.
Right. Mission accomplished, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. I mean, that was how it was going. I mean, the band is completely different
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
And I think most of us wanted the record to even be a little bit different than it ended up being. Yes, we do compromise. But
Yes. I'm going to keep my mouth shut on that one. I like the album. I do appreciate it, but I definitely, what I heard live and what I heard on the record felt a little different.
Yes, we
yeah.
actually. I mean, I'll say
Please.
it. I don't care. We played with the newer version of Calm,
Yeah.
and it was
Oh.
quite a shock to
Yeah.
hear
Yeah.
the album you were on, which I loved as well, and then what it ultimately became. And I was like, wow, all right, that's a big step in the other direction,
sure.
right? And
A probably more comfortable direction, I think, for Henry.
Right on.
sure, okay, yeah,
I never really made much of a stink after I quit because I quit. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
okay.
And other people were told to not be there anymore. I wasn't included in that, and that kind of led to me being like, you don't fire people from you don't like not talk to me. I mean, didn't we start this together?
Right,
You can't just drunk text someone at 2 a.m. and say you're not in the band. I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think Henry and I make music for different reasons, and I was kind of at peace with that. With the newer output, all I have to say is like he should have fucking changed the name. It's that drastically different.
Yeah.
But to know what I know now from the 6 other people who've been in that band, who all have one thing in common, that we really don't want anything to do with him, with
Right.
Henry,
Yeah.
is that this was somewhat thought out. I think he was looking to start a band to get some type of credibility. It was spoken, Brock and Seven Sisters of Sleep,
Yep.
bands that he's played in, me and Harasser, that he was looking to branch out from something he hasn't really had before. It was a little bit manipulative, and I think there's other people who saw it. I watched some people leave the band, and I fought so hard. I obviously wasn't going to take their side, and I just wanted to keep going with this band. But at the end of the day, like everyone was right,
yeah.
and I was probably the last one to really see it. And it's great that they're doing what they want to do.
Sure.
Again, I don't understand why he kept calling it Calm. He is the only original
it's-
member. I think we had started something and built on something, and he's carried on with that, and good for him.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't talk to him anymore. I wouldn't be a dick to him if I saw him. Versus other people who've been in that band, which I think would fucking deck him.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it was weird because the show we played with them was with another band called Abyssal from
I
from
love
Mexico.
that band. Yeah.
So I thought, cool, we're gonna be the odd man out because we're obviously
Not
a little
do-
faster,
yeah.
right?
Right.
And it's Abyssal, Funeral Doom from Mexico.
Yeah.
Calm as I thought I knew it. And then it was what it was, and I was like, "Oh, well,
Yeah.
okay." Every band is the odd man out on this bill.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah.
It hasn't soured you on ever doing another Doom band, has it?
Well, I think for where I live
Yeah.
and my age, that my wife disagrees. I could probably start another band. It's hard. I think the amount of time and money and just blood and sweat I put into that band. Yeah, there is a little bit of like bitterness because I gave it my all, but I've also put myself in a situation where it's going to be hard to create a band.
Sure. No.
Now, so part of the Experimental Fest, me playing some solo shows just started recently, is me getting out there again and doing things on a level that I can do them now.
Good. I mean, as an artist, I imagine you want to make your art. I mean, and
Sure.
any way you can. And I'm as a fan of the stuff you've done, I'm happy to hear that it's still going.
Oh, thanks, man.
However it may be, whatever incarnation it may be. So it's good to see.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody who makes art, I want to see them continue to make art, however it is.
Yes, because it's cathartic. You know what I mean? You do it because of the process. You don't. It's not. It's the journey. It's not the finish. It's not the end result. Making a record is great. You know, I mean, you want it to sound good, you want it to be the best it can be, but you have a lot of components, you have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, so to speak.
Yeah.
And you know, it's going to be a compromise of everything. I think that's what's ultimately brought me to like, okay, fucking play solo, dude. Like, you know what I mean? No one has any input at all in what I do.
Pete looks at him here and says, "Go, Pete! Good job, Pete! Good job! I love it."
So like that, I know earlier before we started recording, you had mentioned that you kind of record music on your own or for other people as well.
Yeah, occasionally people will hire me. Hire me. They don't pay me.
He's in demand, everybody. Good luck. The calendar is full.
I really am looking forward to finishing this recording for the Lumbar Endeavor with Aaron Edge.
Right on.
That's cool. Yeah.
Previously called Lumbar on Southern Lord, Aaron has taken it as the Lumbar Endeavor as his own recording project, and he gave me a whole record to do a while ago, and I am still working on it. I think that's difficult too, in a sense, like if you've rehearsed with someone, you've played these songs, when it comes down to sitting down and recording it, you already have the arrangement, you know what I mean? You know what you're going to do. When you're just listening to a song and you're figuring out what you're going to do and then you're trying it out, it just takes a lot longer, at least for me, to be sincere in what I'm doing. But I am looking forward to that. I'm hoping to finishing that in the next month or so, and that will probably get like a digital release this year.
Cool.
There was the Hater of Man record, a project that Sandor from Harasser started. It's like kind of like a solo noise, inhuman noise, as Sandor would say. Project is a Harasser title, Hater of Man. And I've played some shows as Hater of Man with Sandor, and now I've recorded with him, and we have an album coming out on Oxen Records later this year. It'll be a CD release.
If we could, real quick, go backwards because you did mention it. Dargar.
Oh,
I'm a big
Dargar.
fan of that. How exactly did that come around? The two records, right? The
Two records.
Okay.
There is more material out there because there was going to be a split with Demonologists.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay, I think that's on your Bandcamp.
Come out. Yeah, I think we a few years back. James is like, "Fuck it, let's just put it out there."
Right on.
William, guy, he passed away. DJ at WFMU had New York had a label called Prison Tat Records.
Okay.
Really cool guy. He was going to put a cassette out of it, and he passed away. And I think we had the layout and everything done. And then through Corey and Demonologists, we decided we were going to do a cassette that really never came to fruition. So eventually those songs just got put up digitally, but there was two separate standalone cassettes. And Dargar started from Harasser, from us switching instruments in rehearsal.
Right on.
We also would we liked to be very offensive to each other, very politically incorrect, because if you know James Sandor and I, we actually are just like the gentlest people.
Absolutely.
But in terms of like violence in the mind, to say fucked up things to each other, at least in that company,
Sure.
we really enjoyed.
Right on.
Like we really like to just entertain each other. Like if I can't even say some of the fucked up names we had before we were called Harasser. Just totally what would be the most offensive fucking thing we could do.
Right on.
Anyway, we would switch instruments, and sometimes it was me playing guitar or playing drums. Oftentimes it was James on drums, and James is also a very good drummer.
Okay.
And Sandor is a good guitar player. I am bad at both, but with enough drinks, and it was just fun.
Yeah.
So Dargar was a time, I think, when Sandor would just step aside, and it was James on drums and me on guitar.
Okay.
So that's where the concept started. The name came from me as a take on our two favorite, like almost icons of like cinema, like male icons, and it was Dar from Beastmaster.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Gar, which was Sam Elliott's character in Mask.
Right.
Like these were like these macho men to us.
sure.
And so we thought the name was funny. I mean, this is something James and I talked about, and we're like, if we ever played live, like one of us could dress up like a biker with a handlebar, and one of us could dress up kind of like He-Man-y, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's still time.
Right? But yeah, that's where it came from. And then when it came to recording, I think Sandor had been away, and James and I were working on stuff while we weren't doing Harasser, and he would just program drums, and I would riff on guitar, and then he would manipulate my riffs. He would loop them, he'd stretch them, and then he would add things. Cool. And then that became more on the second record, where he actually played lead himself and bass. I think I played bass on like one track.
Oh, okay, wow.
But it would all, like, the sessions would all start with like programmed drums, and I would just listen on a headphone and just play guitar. And sometimes I came up with some interesting things that, like, I didn't really even feel like I could duplicate. I'm just messing around. And then when everything was said and done, then I would lay down vocals.
That's cool.
This is one of my favorites. Especially how
thanks, man.
different the two albums really are.
Yeah, the first one was much more noise. I think the idea, I don't know if you guys remember a band called Wold, W-O-L-D. This was like kind of like we wanted to make something really noisy, but elements of metal.
Right on.
So that was I guess the influence of doing that particular project. It was definitely Wold. I remember that. And then it kind of progressed. You know what I mean? The second record, you know, had noisy stuff. It had doom stuff. It had thrashy stuff. It was kind of all over the place.
Yeah, That's cool. You mentioned it, and I really, like I said, it was one of my favorite things. James is, along with Sander, obviously,
and
very
that
talented.
that couldn't exist without James.
Yeah.
James has an amazing ability and ear for music and production. He was the glue in Harasser. There was a time I think he wasn't as enthusiastic about music or making music, and this was just a short period of time. And you know, well before I think a lot of people even had heard us, we played out a ton. But Sandor were like, well, what? James doesn't seem into it. Maybe we would get someone else. But it was like, no. I mean, if we got someone else, it wouldn't even be Harasser. Right. Like James, his riffs, like you know, it was. And again, so Dargar was because of his ability with, I think, probably whatever version of GarageBand that he had fucking mastered. Right. And he would never update computers, so he could always use this version of GarageBand that he was so good at. And then, his talent, like, again, he can make things sound great. What he does with his label, Rising Beast, all of his music projects, Vorpal Sword, Moon Knight, it just blows my mind, the amount of talent that guy has, and how lucky I was to, you know, work with him and call him my friend.
I feel the same to have ever met him and just enjoy the music that guy. He's super talented and just a guy you meet you would never know. He's so humble about it, and you're just like, then you play it and you go, wait a minute, why aren't you bragging more about this?
Yeah, definitely humble. Yeah, sweet guy.
Yeah, I had a really good conversation. Remember that one time at the Handbag Factory?
Yeah.
I hadn't spoken to him before, you know, just online a couple times, but we sat down next to each other, chatted for about 15 minutes, and then that was it. And I was like, man, that's a cool ass dude. Yeah.
Totally.
And I know you said you wouldn't push for like a Harasser return, but would you like be interested in doing something where it's like a mail order band, you know, where like James
exactly. I think that's something that would be more realistic if it did happen, was something that like, hey, James, throw us a riff, and you know, Sandor can lay down some beats, and I can throw down some vocals. If everyone wanted to, so that's the whole thing. I want to. I the best experience of my life is making music with those guys, because it was so easy, because you know, we knew each other so well, especially towards the end. It was just like, you only have, you know, guitar, drums, and vocals. There wasn't that many variables. I knew when the changes were going to happen. We could really just play together so easily and effortlessly because of the really simple components that made that band. Yeah. But now, if everyone was down, I would be certainly down to do some recordings and release something. And
that's cool.
And I don't think any of us have ever ruled it out. Like, we never said we were done.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
Would there be, since you were working on the Lumbar record, would there be any interest in you doing like a one-man, like either black metal project or like a one-man band where it's something more along the lines of Harasser or Dargar?
Yeah, it's something I think about. Especially, you know, if it never would be a live type of thing, so I could take time with recording different instruments and kind of piecing it together, you know, through software. I think I flirt with the idea of doing something like that with my wife.
I was about to ask.
We always have wanted to do something together.
That'd be cool.
Obviously, we're very different musicians in our approach. I mean, she's about as pro as they come. I mean, when you're endorsed by, you know, Orange Amplifiers and you're the type of guitarist that changes your strings before every show. I mean, like, I'm like, really? You don't just wait for them to break?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Or have just another guitar tuned right over there? Like, oh, okay. I remember at the point Harasser was finally like, maybe, James, you should just bring a second guitar in case a string breaks. Because, you know.
I do remember one of your shows where he broke a string, and it was like, like you said, with just a drummer, a singer, and a guitarist. Like, well, we're just gonna sit here and wait for James.
I mean, he's played shows where he was missing strings, at least one string, and he would just just drop that down over here, and we'll just keep it going. I'm like, yeah, it sounds a little different, but fuck it. I mean, you know, I mean, he was already so down tuned anyways. Like his strings were like a slinky, you know.
Yeah. And for the, you know, for maybe anybody wondering, Pete's wife is Emily Burton from Fireball Ministry, also guitarist for Black Sabbath, who are on tour at the moment, or
no, they're not on tour. They tour an awful lot. I think they just announced a European tour, or at least just a UK tour that's supposed to happen in August. And we will see the political climate of the world if that remains to be seen.
We're allowed to leave.
If we're allowed to leave. At least for us, we're lucky we live in California, I think.
And Fireball Ministry, everybody. Check
Fireball
them
Ministry,
out.
check them out for
Fantastic
sure.
band.
Yes,
She's
my
an
wife's
amazing
amazing.
guitar player in that band.
Super stoked.
I'd always wondered if at any point you and she would team up and do something, you know.
Okay, so here's a fun fact. She was in Calm.
Oh, really?
We didn't have a name. We didn't have a bass player yet.
Okay.
But me, Henry, Emily, and then the original drummer did 2 rehearsals together.
Oh, interesting.
That's cool.
Yes.
Now, is the music that you do, being as different as it is, the stuff that, at least what she's known for, she a fan of some of your stuff, or is some of the stuff a little like not her?
Well, you know, when we were recording, she seemed to be a fan of Harasser, but I think she was trying to get my attention. She mail ordered some shit, and she came to some shows.
Right on.
I think she was more of a fan of me. I can also remember at like Vacation Vinyl, like she hit me up through like the Vacation Vinyl Twitter and was like, oh man, what was, what's the 70s band? She was, Homer's band. She's like, hey, you guys got any used Grand Funk? And I was like, right now, we really don't? And I'm like, this is kind of out of nowhere, like question on Twitter, like, do we have any used Grand Funk? We don't have any Grand Funk right now, but she would come to the store. It was actually at one of the Power of the Riffs. You know, where I would curate the DJs and, you know, Vacation would vend and, you know, promote that with Southern Lord. I was behind the Vacation Vinyl, like, merch table. I was with Sam Velde. I don't know if you guys knew Sam. He had the band Bluebird back in the day in, like, the 90s. And, he's been in a shit ton of bands. Sam's a really cool guy.
Right on.
I think this is back when he did partake, and we were both very stoned.
Right on.
And I was sitting there, and Emily walked up, and I think it was towards the end of the night, and I was just exhausted and stoned, and I could tell she was flirting with me, and I messaged her like on like Facebook like the next day. It was like, you know, I really should have got your phone number. And I might even say I think I was too fucking stoned or something like that. But I should have asked, and that's at a Power of the Riff.
Hey, could do worse, believe me. I obviously I had known you for some time, and as Nick says, once you see Pete, you will always remember seeing Pete.
Yeah.
I saw you at several shows before I ever knew who you were, or, you know. But then the time I saw you with Emily, it was like, wait a minute, I know who that is too. Yeah. Like, holy crap, right on, Pete, hell yeah.
Yeah, I lucked out.
Nice. I'll kick your coverage. Nothing wrong with that.
I think we all lucked out
Absolutely.
with our
Yes.
partners.
I
Absolutely.
agree. I agree. Cool. So that's awesome.
Right on.
I enjoy hearing about people's artistic endeavors, the path to where they're at now. But with that, what are you listening to, Pete?
So I'd say right now it's always all over the place. I really am enjoying the new Nordvarger. It's got an element of beats as well as like the noise and kind of a certain amount of black metal aesthetics. If you know anything from Nordvarger, God, I was listening to the Clutch reissue remaster of Transnational Speedway
Oh, I didn't
last
even
night.
know.
Yeah.
I'm very critical, and I wanted to like A/B it with whatever press I have of that record previous to this remaster. Yeah. I'm not always blown away by what someone calls a remaster, especially if they don't really break down like what the process is, like what was the source material, what did you do, who did it, things like that. But I had not listened to that record in a while, and that is like my Clutch record, Transnational Speedway League.
Right on. Okay.
So that was really fun because, again, I was just saying to you guys before that I sometimes get stumped with that question of what I'm listening to because I am very much all over the place and tend to listen to just everything that Bandcamp emails me every day because I'm such a junkie. Bandcamp Friday is like... It's a positive and a negative for me because I'm the kind of guy who likes to keep his email inbox like less than 50. So I'll open up like a million tabs on my browser and like I got to check everything out before like I move on to something else. But yeah, so I guess what I'm telling you, this is what I listened to last night was Nordvarger and Clutch.
Right on.
Oh, and the Mizmor Hell LP that
That's
just
such a
came out.
good split.
It's a collab.
Yeah.
So I was super stoked. I mean, both of those artists in general are like, to me, some of the most current like metal-y doom.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the two guys, Mizmor and Hell. What's his name? MSW is his initials. The guy from Hell.
Okay.
Is mostly him, and I forget the guy who does the name from the guy from Mizmor. But Gilead killing it as always.
Yeah.
So
Are you going to go check out their show at all?
Probably not. I don't get out to many shows.
Right. Being so far away. Yeah.
Partly because of where I live. I mean, I did move to the mountains for a reason. Like, I tend to just like to not be around other people.
Sure.
Like, I could only do like a festival if, I had like a pass that let me like walked around everywhere. And that's the only times I have done a festival in like the last like 10 or 15 years. I really get like overwhelmed. I get a lot of anxiety with crowds. So I tend not to go out too much. I went and saw Alcest and Mono at the Fonda a couple months ago. And that was 3.5 hours to get there in the pouring rain. And then driving home, leaving at the last song of Alcest because I wanted to beat it before it started snowing because the last part of my drive home is all windy mountain roads. And if I'm in the snow and it's dark and I'm tired. So that's what it meant was like that I drove a total of 6 hours to go to a show that I was at for like 2 hours. But it was actually really worth it. So I kind of do pick and choose those times.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know. Sorry, were there any other things you wanted to do?
No. So yeah, that was last night. Clutch, Nordvarger, Hell, and Mizmor and Hell.
I know. If anybody sees you around, you have some very recognizable tattoos. One of which is Danzig.
Yeah. I have like 7 Danzig tattoos.
All right. When did you get into Danzig?
I was pretty young. It was definitely Danzig before Misfits because of my age.
Same.
So it was the first Danzig record right when it came out. Very attracted to that. Now I had 2 older brothers and we shared a bedroom growing up. So, that was very much of an influence on me at the time. I know my brother Craig and I, like, we were super big Danzig fans. So then it was kind of like backtracking. It was kind of like I was listening to like Ozzy before I was listening to Sabbath.
Right. Yeah. That's how I started. Yeah. Yeah.
So then I kind of went back. I was obviously fucking fell in love with the Misfits,
Yeah.
like right away. But yeah, I was, what was the first record? 88.
88?
So yeah, it was right away getting into that.
Were you ever in Sam Hain as well, or?
Yeah. So then of course that follows. It goes Danzig. Then you hear about the Misfits. And then you hear about Sam Hain, which when I was really little, and early on, because of what Sam Hain was, because it was so much more like kind of Baroque and like ominous and, obviously, different than the Misfits. He wasn't recreating the Misfits. Even when he played Misfits songs as Sam Hain, it was like, oh, this is different.
Yeah.
So I think at first I didn't even like really have an ear for Sam Hain as much.
Okay.
When you hear Danzig first and then you go back to the Misfits and then you like Misfits because you like the songs Metallica covered. So it's like, I really liked Earth AD. So then you just, you grow, you learn, you have an ear for everything. Now, of course, I mean, it's all like kind of like a gospel to me.
Yeah. No, yeah. I remember the one time my old band played with Harasser out in Pomona, and I was like, should I ask him about Danzig? Because I really want to talk Danzig with somebody. But then I remember I saw you at Amoeba, and this was, I don't know if you recall this. They had the first Danzig album up on the wall.
Mm-hmm. Was it signed?
Signed, yes.
Yeah.
And I wanted to buy it, but I was like, I can't. Like, there's no way I can.
And I know when he signed that, I know whose record it was. So that was, briefly I worked at the Rainbow.
Okay.
The Rainbow in the Sunset Strip, West Hollywood, as a bouncer. The guy who kind of hooked me up with that job, he was much younger, really awesome guy, Dan, and passionate. He'd done some tour managing for like Pentagram, and I can't even remember what did Trouble become with Eric Wagner.
yeah.
Is it Place of Skulls?
Yes.
There it is.
No, not Places
No.
of something with the skull.
It is.
Oh, the Skull.
The Skull.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
after the Trouble
Yeah,
album
I wasn't a
title.
Trouble guy, so.
Yeah, so he'd done some tour managing for them, and he was really cool. But occasionally, the dude just had some money problems, and Glenn would come into the Rainbow on Christmas. They were open on Christmas. Not many people came in on Christmas.
Yeah.
And Dan had the record with him because he knew Glenn was going to come in. So he had Glenn sign it for him then ran into some money problems, and then he sold me the record through Amoeba. I think I probably priced it too and put it on the wall.
I remember walking in there, and I was like, oh my God, one day.
Yeah.
Did you go out to see like Danzig play at all, or?
No, it's been a minute since I've seen him. I mean, I know you've had some issues recently, and I got in each to their own. I mean, I have as well. A good friend of Emily and I's used to be like his personal assistant, and ran into some medical problems, and Glenn kind of just dropped him.
Oh,
I mean,
Craig.
he'd worked for him for like 25 years.
Yeah, Craig. Yeah.
Craig. Yes,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know Craig.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's lots of things. I don't think I'm in any hurry to go out and to see Glenn anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
And as he has said recently, I don't think he's gonna, however he rationalizes it, he's not recording and releasing anything.
Yeah.
I'm happy that the Misfits got back together years ago, and I got to see that.
Same.
But yeah, I don't see myself going to any Danzig shows anytime in the future.
Yeah. No, it was. I mean, I mentioned it because I know you're a fan. Aaron's a fan. I'm a tremendous fan over here. So,
I mean, I'm one of the really nerdy people who has the Danzig tribal skull tattooed on him.
Oh,
you
there
can't
you go.
see it because my boot covers it. I have Danzig 4 down here. Black Aria over here.
Right on.
Yeah,
Again, those are the tattoos that you notice whether you know Pete or not, you do notice.
Yeah.
Oh, there's that the sun
yeah.
tattoo.
Well, there's
and
several things you notice about Pete. One, very tall individual.
Yes.
Two, your beard is as tall as you, right? And then the tattoos, and then you're like, oh wow, I'm not gonna be able to get any closer to this person. Turns out you're a super nice guy, you know.
Aw, you guys
Yeah.
are sweet. Thank you.
Aaron, you listening to anything?
This week I didn't actually get into anything too brand new. I just kind of went backwards. Triptychon, I visited with them. I just, Tom Warrior just can't do anything wrong as far as I'm concerned.
Love
Okay, we won't talk about some of the.
Well, we could talk about Cold Lakes.
Other than Cold Lake. That and the comeback Celtic Frost record, Monotheist. I did that one.
Yeah.
Which I just, in my opinion, probably the best comeback record ever.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at like when Venom did it, or like when Priest did it, and they got back with Halford, like the Monotheist really stands up, and also in that like sonic way that he was headed towards with Triptychon.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think what I love about that record too is this band is massively influential to all these other bands, and yet you hear Monotheist, it is Celtic Frost, and yet you hear the influences of the people they influenced on what they're
them.
doing on that record.
Yeah.
And that is so, to be that prolific, to be that band, you could have easily rested on laurels and just said, I know what I'm doing, and yet, guys, I think guys from Satyricon are on that with him and stuff like. I love that about him. That it's like whether Celtic Frost was going or not, it was clear he was still listening, and he was so influenced by those things.
Still tapped in
to tap it into Celtic.
Okay, now you have like generations on generations, and
it's just so amazing. Somewhat new was there's a podcast I've told you about called One Song, which is a fun little thing. Although again, you should listen to ours first, and then you can go listen to theirs. But they did Tears for Fears, Head Over Heels, and
great song.
Yeah, and I just wow, and I thought I know their hits, but I've never bothered to listen to any of their records. So I went ahead with just the first two.
Yeah.
There's some good stuff on there that I was and just kind of a different perspective on them. One that I returned to, I believe it came out last year, the band Great Falls. Objects in Pain, I believe is what it is. It just came out on Narot, I believe, last year. I can't get enough of this record. It just, there's noise, there's sludge. It's almost like if you took the punkier version of Neurosis and mixed it with like kind of the Big Black Shellac style. That they were doing. It's just like there's noise. There's I think they even use a drum machine in a part, even though they have a live drummer. And it's just like the emotion they put through it is just like it's one of those great cathartic records. By the time you're done with it, you want to press play again, but you're just like, I don't know if I have the energy to listen to this again. It's taken all of it out of me. Trying to think if there was anything else. I went down another. Hank Williams, there's a perfect compilation album they have on Spotify that just is like, it's like 3 CDs, and it's just like, all I got to do is push play, and it's just like, there's nobody to skip. It was funny, one thing I was thinking about while I was listening to him was something we've talked about with the Misfits, is like how amazing it is that this short span, and yet they have no bad songs.
No bad songs.
Like there's literally no one song that you go, hey, even if ones are better than others, for the most part, killer discography, and I just think, if there is anybody that kind of relates that, at least it's Hank Williams. Yeah. It's the same thing. It's like I've never heard a bad song from him. Not one where I go, it's just like, and it's just funny to have those two kind of in my world at least meet, where Misfits and Hank Williams not exactly the same, but in some ways very similar.
Hank the Third did cover.
Well, no doubt.
That's just what I was going to say. We can bridge this. We can 6 degree separation real quick.
Not surprising in that way, but it is just kind of just interesting, their discography in that way. But other than that, just, some of the usual, some Sepultura, some stuff like that. But how about yourself?
So I started listening to a band from Russia called Rye.
Okay.
RYE.
Yes.
Okay. Have you heard of these?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
super
the
great.
New one's great.
Doom. Oh my God. It's
Awesome. Is this the one Dan just recently?
Yes.
Okay. I have it on my list.
It's so good. And
It's varied too. It's not one thing. It's
yeah.
Okay.
It's awesome.
It's
right?
a ride.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to make time for this.
Okay.
Right.
It's on my list.
So Rise, like at the top of the list. A band from Finland called Unkind.
Okay.
Which kind of the one band that we were throwing back and forth. Remember, kind of Crust.
Oh, the one I told you I just found. One-eyed.
One-eyed God Prophecy.
Prophecy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Unkind is not too different from that.
Okay.
It's got elements of neo crust, kind of dark, D-beat type stuff.
Okay.
But it's very metallic sounding. It's from Finland. Finland is the home to many a beloved death metal band. My favorite being Ripa Kaulu. But Unkind have an EP and I think an album out that I was able to find.
Okay.
The one EP, I think it's called Hoopa.
Okay.
14 minutes. It's, I dare say it's like a more hardcore punk version of Neurosis and just as much of the emotion.
Okay.
It's so
Unkind.
fucking good.
Unkind. Okay.
Unkind. And then there's a band called Counterblast. I believe I don't want to guess what country they're from.
Gotcha.
Somewhere in Europe. But Counterblast just recently put up their catalog up. And I think it's like 3 albums or 3 releases that are out.
Okay.
And again, it's hardcore punk versions of Neurosis, but through a European filter.
Okay.
So they add a lot more musicality. It's great.
Right
It's
on.
super, super good. If you like any of that early Neurosis stuff, both Unkind and Counterblast will satisfy you.
All right. List is growing.
Yeah. Aside from that, I started listening to Scratch Acid, which I mentioned before. I was actually very shamefully unaware of their history. So I started listening to everything I could consume, and it's fucking great. I really kick myself when I can
No,
reach.
I know the name. Describe what are we talking about musically?
Uh,
The name I know I've heard,
like
but
proto noise rock,
Okay,
you know?
all right.
This is where Jesus Lizard comes from.
okay.
It's good. It's I know we've used the word abstract a lot, but I think it really applies with this band.
I know.
You know, it's noisy in all the right places,
Okay.
and when it comes together, it's just satisfying, right?
Right on.
And then there's another band called Pain Teens.
Okay.
I only know that it's a couple from Texas, and they also mixed elements of noise, electronic, and like goth type stuff.
Okay.
So what you would imagine a lot of the synth dark wave bands sounding, but
Okay.
like maybe imagine it heavier
Okay.
and noisier. That's Pain Teens.
Pain Teens.
Pain Teens.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then lastly, I started going into Oingo Boingo because I love Oingo Boingo.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear my Oingo Boingo
Yes,
story?
please,
Can I-
please.
All right. So this is really weird how it came about. Now, it was through Scott Reeder from
Nice.
Caius, who plays bass in Fireball Ministry with my wife. He had hit me up. He texted me. This is 7, 8 years ago, something like that. That Petra Hayden of the Hayden sisters,
Yeah.
who is friends with Danny. He was looking for someone, like a metal singer, to do a demo with.
Huh.
Okay. I think they're trying to keep it kind of low key and like just someone not on the radar, but just could like come and lay some stuff down. And Scott thought of me
Nice.
and texted me and put me in touch with Danny's people, and they gave me a track of like an example of what they were looking for, and I literally think it was Drowning Pool. And I was like, oh, this is not going to work out. Like, no. Like, and then they're like, well, send us some stuff. So I gave them, I think I gave them something where I sang with Actuary and something from Harasser. Like in these examples. This
Which is just like Drowning Pool, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, they were like, oh, that's great. And I was like, oh, okay, because that's like night and day from
Yeah.
what you were saying you were looking for. But anyway, we set up this session that I'm going to go fucking demo with Danny Elfman.
That's cool.
That's fucking amazing.
But I don't know what I'm fucking doing. And I show up, and it's so crazy. You guys remember where the garage was?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, which is now, I don't even remember what it's called now. It's like a nightclub now. It's not a...
On like Santa Monica.
Yeah, it's right next to the library there,
Yep.
right before like Santa Monica turns up into like the junction at
Yes.
Sunset
Yeah.
there. Not far from where Hydra head offices used to be.
Right.
But across the street kind of from the library, there's this unassuming like building that's not marked. It's a recording studio. It's Danny Elfman's recording studio.
Wow.
He bought it from Kiefer Sutherland. When Kiefer, like, you know, every actor wants to be a musician.
Sure.
A comedian wants to be a musician. Musicians want to be actors. Kiefer Sutherland had a label, did music, had money, put a lot of money into this place, and then finally let it go. Danny bought it. So even when I got there, I didn't really understand. And then I get brought in, and, you know, you're in a room, and it's just all framed posters, like Disney posters, all the stuff that he's like scored and shit.
Trophy cases of. Yeah.
And then I get introduced to Danny. It's just, there was his assistant, and there was like his engineer and him. And it's a gorgeous studio. And he's like, do you know what we're going to work on? I said, I have no idea. And he's like, do you like the Ultimate Fighting Championship? And I'm like, no. Surprise me, right? I'm like, you know, I mean, it's fine. I'm like, yeah, not my thing necessarily.
Right.
Danny loves it. He's
interesting.
way into it.
Yeah.
And he has been hired to make the new theme song for UFC.
Oh,
And this is what I'm going to demo.
okay.
And he gives me lyrics printed out on a piece of paper. Pardon me.
No.
And it was like so fucking juvenile and elementary. It's like, bring it upside the head. Bring it till you waken the dead. And it was just like, okay. And then I go into like the main like recording room. There's like 2 sets of like sliding glass. And then like the control room like is overlooking through the glass. And he's like, well, I set up like a little teleprompter here with just like a reel of like some kick-ass UFC fights to like pump you up. And I was like, okay. So first time I run it through, I do it like kind of harasser, so it's kind of screechy, kind of high.
Awesome.
And they not feeling that at all. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, well, we'll go Cookie Monster,
Right on,
you know?
right on.
And he liked it. And I mean, the whole thing was just under an hour. And we talked for a while and shared stories like, where do you play? And he was sharing, he would never say Oingo Boingo, but he was talking about Oingo Boingo and like old shows. He's like, you know, he'd bring up like, you know, X and like the Go-Go's and like,
cool.
he was like, he's like, you know, X. I'm like, yeah, I love X. And he's talking about Billy Zoom. He's like, you know, Billy Zoom was really weird with his guitars. So I used to fuck with him and like hide his guitar. And I'm like, oh, okay. Crazy. Wow.
That's cool.
That's
But
really
yeah,
neat.
so I framed the check. He wrote me a check, which I think I mobile deposited so I could keep my check.
Hell yeah.
And every once in a while, someone will see the check, be like, dude, what is that check from Danny Elfman? I'm like, oh, dude, I like sang a song like that he wrote for UFC. I mean, and then nothing came of it. He actually said, you know, if something comes of it, I think the whole idea, but he was like, you know, I can't do this. He's like, I don't demo with anyone.
Yeah.
He's like, but I can't make my voice like that. And I was like,
Interesting. Okay.
and I'll be honest with you, I'm not like some great singer. You know what I mean? Like, I was just like more like, wow, dude, what a trip. And like, I mean, and then the whole day I was just like, oh my fucking God. Like, I mean,
I remember seeing the picture and saying,
Oh,
"Oh,
right?
my
Okay.
fucking God, what the hell?"
so just one of those random things in the world.
That's
so
cool.
and that's funny that you're talking about that you're listening
Oh
to
yeah,
Oingo Boingo.
I love Oingo. Ever since one of my aunts, she got me into them when I was a wee little kid, and when I was coming out of junior high, I went to go see one of their supposed, you know, air quotes, last shows, with like the Roman candles being lit off indoors and everything, and I should not have been in there with my aunt, but it was cool, you know.
Yeah.
But that always stayed with me, so I decided, hey, you know what? It's getting to be warm. Why not listen to some fun music?
I would have
Yeah.
just asked him about back to school.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
What was it like meeting Rodney Dangerfield? Probably wouldn't have wanted those questions.
One of the greatest movies of all time.
Well, now that you mentioned that,
Movies, please.
what are you watching?
Oh, wow. Shit, man. Sometimes I'll tell you that I really just start rewatching a lot of shit. So you saying like Sopranos or 6 Feet Under.
Yeah.
We got a Max subscription. So sometimes it's just going down that rabbit hole where you're treating viewing as like something you don't have to think too much about, particularly if it's like something you've seen before. But I have one episode left of Adolescence. We've been super milking that. My wife does travel a lot, and then some shows were like we save them so we can like be together and watch them. So I'm looking forward to that. Other than that, you know, if for some people who don't know, I love the TV show Beverly Hills 90210.
Okay,
I
let's
cl-
put a quick bookmark on that.
Yeah.
You are one of many people I've encountered on this musical journey of mine that love 90210. My wife also loves the show. I remember it, but go on, please.
Well, I mean, it's weird. I mean, for me, growing up in Southern California, they were, I guess, 2 years ahead of me from when I graduated, but same graduating class with my brother, who I shared a room with. And it was another one of those, I really enjoy, like, kind of like really sappy, like family drama shit.
yeah.
I can really eat up that stuff, like morals and values, and just like totally not what life is like. Even when they go out of their way, like this episode is about suicide, this is about teen pregnancy, this is about fucking drugs.
Special episode.
That's right. You know, and little PSA at the end and shit, about animal testing or whatever, you know what I mean? So it was just like, it was like one of those like escapes, like where it's like, this is like so not real. But between the music, the fashion, obviously the locality of it, it got ingrained in me. And now it's just like my safe place where I don't go a week without watching that show.
That's
I watch
cool.
it all the fucking time. And I collect stuff.
Do you collect 90210?
I collect memorabilia from
That's
90210.
awesome. That's cool.
I don't seek out too much actively anymore, but over the years people like will gift me stuff. Like I have a tile from the Peach Pit from the
That's
set.
cool.
Wow.
Like my wife one year she got me like a mock license plate from Steve's vet that says I ate a Ferrari. I ate a Ferrari because he had a vet. I have like a little God, was it like a vinyl like picture thing, and it's of the scene when Brandon's dating Emily Valentine and they go to the rave.
Yes,
and it's
yeah.
Euphoria, and it has the guy with the 4 on his shirt, and like they're like together, and she's like putting the Euphoria in his drink.
I'm
Well,
glad-
also great too. Like in that episode, they play Sisters of Mercy.
Yes, yeah.
Which now all of the music is gone. I understand completely how this all works business wise and licensing. But yes, originally they were listening to Sisters of Mercy.
So Emily Valentine, I just learned she came from the Philadelphia punk scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess she was really good friends with the wife of, unfortunately now deceased, Al Barile from SSD Control.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so like when Emily, I forget her real name. I'm going to call her Emily Valentine for
that works.
When Emily Valentine came out to the West Coast, one of her closest confidants was Nancy Barile, who, was in the whole hardcore punk scene out east. So I just learned about that, and I was like, that's awesome, because when she came out on the show, people half hated her, people half loved her. Right?
Sure. It's one of those, yeah.
That's cool.
Those polarizing characters this 90210 is known to have. Yes.
So anything else? Any other?
Not too much. Again, like every time I try to think of something, it just slips away. I think it's years of drinking and drug use, but no. Yeah, I could tell you like last night, and again, I think that was I watched a little bit of OC last night.
Okay,
Another one of those very much fills all the boxes for me.
Sure, yeah.
My wife and I had like thrown on an episode or two before she went out of town earlier this week, and then she was gone. I'm like, I kind of want to see how Ryan's adjusting right now. We'll see if
like
Marissa will give him another shot.
Yeah.
Right on.
Cool. Aaron, you?
Again, still doing the Sopranos thing. Very much enjoying it. I got to see probably my favorite episode, or at least a part of favorite episode, when the wife goes to therapy and the guy pretty much tells her everything she should have heard from day one. And it's so blunt, and to watch her just struggle with it, I really enjoy that episode. Again, my take on it is just like, it's well acted, it's well done, it's an amazing show, but it's just like all these people complaining about how could life do this to me, and it's like, you keep making these choices. What are you talking about? Just finished up the one that everybody always points at, one of the great ones, the Pine Barrens one.
Pine Barrens,
that's always great to see. Paulie just makes you laugh your balls off of that guy. New movie wise, my aunt's birthday was Saturday. She wanted to see the movie Novocaine, which I thought was strange because
the Steve Martin movie.
No, this is a new one with Meg Ryan and what's her ex-husband, their kid from The Boys. So the premise of this movie is
Oh,
essentially
God, Quaid.
Quaid.
The
There it
Quaid
is.
kid.
The Quaid kid.
Yes.
Premise of the
I've seen
movie
trailer.
is he does not feel pain. He
Oh,
has
that's
some
right.
disease that makes it so he feels no pain whatsoever. He then works at a bank, kind of a nerd, doesn't have friends, starts to fall in love with a girl at the bank. A couple days later, the bank is robbed. They take her captive, and he has decided, well, I'm going to go get her. I'm going to rescue her. I think this was written and directed by the same guys who did the movie Nobody. I don't know if you ever saw that one. Better Call Saul guy. He is just a mild-mannered dude in Chicago who suddenly you realize has this past in which he is an ass kicker. These aren't Citizen Kane by any stretch, but they're wonderfully fun movies. Great action, the whole thing. I was just shocked. My aunt hates any sort of violence, and I was just like, "You sure you want to see this, right?" She's like, "Absolutely," which I wanted to see it. So fuck it. Hey, it's your birthday. Fine. We rented it on Amazon, and yeah, about halfway through, she's just constantly covering her eyes. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know what you thought, but okay. But very enjoyable, very fun. Still continuing with the John Mulaney show. It kills me every time. I think it's very funny. I like him, and it's so weird and abstract. And I can't think of the guy's name now, but his sidekick that does the.
Richard Kind.
I love him. He's just another one. He just kills me with everything he does. The other big one that we're continuing to watch, obviously, Last of Us. Still doing that one. That's a family one. Like you're saying, some ones we saved for the,
Yes.
So my kids,
Together.
they play the video game, so they know everything. So they over there, while we're watching,
know
the
what's
episode,
about to
They know
happen.
what's coming down. Yeah, but very much enjoying that. And then the one that comes right after it, because I think Nathan Fielder is an absolute fucking genius, is The Rehearsal. I cannot get enough of that show. I'm usually not a fan of the let's make you feel uncomfortable kind of comedy that usually kind of, because I get too uncomfortable, but he just has mastered it in a way that I just cannot get enough of that show. So that's another family watch that my son, it's probably one of his favorite shows. He thinks that guy's an absolute genius, and I'm with him. Other than that, just the average staple, something comes on, and just I've seen it 1,000 times, and why not one more? How about yourself?
Well, much like yourself, I'm also watching The Last of Us with
Right on.
Amy. I love the way this show is,
Same.
mapping itself out. It's so honest and like true to the game, and even the changes. And I think I've said this before. Like they're noticeable changes,
Right.
but it works within the confines of what weekly TV is supposed to
I hear
be.
you.
Andor season 2 started.
Haven't got there yet.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to
Andor
it.
1 is by far some of the best Star Wars related material.
For sure.
And season 2 it's turning out good.
Has it finished yet? It's not all up, right?
I don't think it is. I've
Okay.
only
'Cause
watched
that's
like
what we're kind of
3,
waiting for, because I know
So you
we're
can
going to want to
binge
just
it.
absolutely
Yeah.
binge it.
Yeah.
It's one of those.
but it's
And then
so
go right
good.
into Rogue One.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. That's the best Star Wars ever. Like as
of
far
the
as I'm
new-
It
concerned.
was the best movie outside of since Jedi.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, what was I saying? Andor.
Andor.
Last of Us, Andor. We started we've been watching Hacks,
Okay.
which is
Yeah,
hilarious.
my wife. Yeah, I heard you saying that on another episode. My wife has been into that, and I,
It's-
in another room overhear it.
Yeah, it's funny. It's super funny. I like the dynamics between Jean Smart and the other actress, the younger actress. That's her writer.
Okay.
And her daughter too, right?
Her daughter, yes,
Yeah.
her daughter. Yeah. Her daughter's actually from another show. I think she's from the Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
The blonde on that show.
Yeah, I
Oh.
forget her name.
Is she
of
the
course.
waitress? No.
I want to say it's her.
It is because again, like my wife is watching it. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm hearing it
Yeah.
in another room.
Yeah. I
So,
want to say
okay.
it's her. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
We've also started watching a show called Four Seasons.
on my
Yeah.
queue.
Okay. See, now you guys say the shit. We watched a couple
Oh, okay.
episodes. Now saving it to be together. But yeah, it starts real good.
It's
Well, the
so
cast looks
good.
amazing.
It's
Yeah.
okay.
Golly.
I got it. It's only 8 episodes.
Okay.
We're 4 in because
Uh-huh.
we binged some of it yesterday. As a
Okay.
matter of fact, I thought I wasn't gonna like it,
I gotcha.
but Amy kept kind of saying like, I'll watch it if you don't like the first episode by myself.
Right on.
So sat down, watched it with her, It's funny. The tension with those characters and the situation that's presented.
Right on.
Ooh, it's
Okay.
Some places you're super uncomfortable,
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
but it's just because of the decisions those people have to make.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. It's
Yeah.
and it's because I can't see, I hear Tina Fey,
Yeah.
and I imagine 30 Rock, and I hear Homeboy's name, and I imagine Michael Scott,
Sure.
right?
Steve Carell.
Carell,
Yeah, Steve Carell, yeah.
Just
so-
everybody in that lineup, I was just like, wow. I can't.
Yes,
You know.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's really well acted. It's really good. So yeah, 4 seasons the other one, and because I started my Cormac McCarthy yearly indulgence, this meant I had to go back and watch The Road and depress myself for many years to come.
I don't. There's always those scenes in so many movies, but when he is thinks he's gonna have to kill the kid to save
Oh
it.
yeah.
Jesus Christ, man! The first time I watched that, I was just it tore me up.
Yeah, I mean that's a big
know.
thing, and even in the book,
Yeah.
like because in the movie, it's brought up in the movie,
I gotcha.
but in the book, it's a continuous thing that he's struggling with, right?
I mean, essentially, that's just what when you see him pull it out in the movie, you realize like, oh, he's thought about
Yes,
this
yeah.
and what he's gonna have to do.
Yeah.
And like, oh God, as a parent or just as a human, I don't
Yep.
know how. Oh God, yeah, great movie.
Yeah, so The Road, and then up next is gonna be No Country for Old Men,
Nice.
which
Ooh, yeah. Always a good watch.
always a good movie, and I will forever say that Anton Chigurh is
Yeah.
not a real person. He's more of a force of nature
Yeah.
that is non-existent, but these people have to somehow contend with and survive, but yeah, that's
Your Netflix, by the way, reminded me of we talked about. I think we did finish Black Mirror.
right
Another
on,
fantastic season.
yeah, it was
I
great.
just I started it and then I was like, wait, I'm not ready for my full attention's not here. I'm gonna set it aside.
I don't believe
Yeah,
it. The imagination that goes into this stuff
Yes.
is just so unbelievable.
What was the one that came out on Christmas? It was like a choose your own adventure.
Yeah,
like,
actually,
yeah.
they're
That-
taking. I just read they're taking that down.
taking it down.
Yep, Netflix is gonna
that
take
was,
it down.
Amazingly, that was an aspect of that was that kid listening to a Tangerine Dream record, and my wife's like, "What record is this?" And then I'm like, "I'm gonna buy that record for you because
Right on.
yes,
Yeah, in fact, one of the new episodes actually ties into that episode.
Yes.
Yeah. So and that's why Google's always listening, and all of a sudden I saw one of the headlines on
Right.
Google say that they're taking down one of their most successful episodes, and I thought, well, which one? And it's that one where you choose. I didn't get any further than find out any explanation because, quite frankly, they couldn't give me one that I would love because I think I'm with you. I think that's we're all old enough to remember Choose Your Own Adventure books in general.
Right?
The
Yeah,
idea that
absolutely,
this
yeah.
live action, the thing that Tom Hanks talks about in Big when he's a
Yep.
kid, right?
Yep.
That you go, oh man, if that ever came to life, holy shit! I'm literally doing it in my home. So the idea of them taking that down is pretty.
Yeah, it's like Taco Bell trying to explain why all the menu items you love you can't order,
Yep.
even though it's all the same 7 or 8 things.
Yeah.
Where is
And
my
you're like-
Toledo?
Yes, guys,
Chorito.
guys, you were so successful, and everyone hates you now. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, another fantastic season. Any of the episodes you were telling me about? Absolutely.
Right, yeah. So it's all good. And I don't know if we're getting more after this, but I really hope so.
Oh, I
because-
hope it can. Again, as I said many times, and I'm not the first. It's just this modern day Twilight Zone
Yeah.
in which you are using these things that aren't current in our lives, but feel like they're just around the corner, as these allegories and warnings, but also like the one where like I won't give anything away, but where the girl the girl goes into the movie.
Yes.
Like technically, it's not technology's going to kill us all. No, they tell this love story through it the same way they did with like San Junipero, and I just think the ability to do that on such a consistent basis, where I've gone back and watched all of them. There's maybe one or two that I go, but the rest of them are just so damn good. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was something I was reminded of because it was definitely I knew you had seen them all, and I wanted to talk to you about it, but I haven't seen them yet. Don't ruin, please.
Yeah.
You know?
All right, so I have
Please.
one. I don't know if you guys had watched the show. We watched it from the beginning, and it just finished the finale of the whole series, The Righteous Gemstones.
Oh, I've been wanting to watch this so bad. I know it has Walton Goggins, who's
Yeah. Oh,
like
yeah.
the it
Baby
guy
Billy.
right now. Yeah. Yeah, so I've been wanting I mean, tell us about it. Is it
Well, and let me say, I'm going to be the guy who people are going to hate. I do not like the one guy. What is his name?
You're not a fan of Kenny
Oh,
Powers?
no.
Danny McBride?
Danny McBride is just, he feels like a one-trick pony. I've seen it in enough movies. I don't need to see it again. Believe me, you are one of many people who gets, what do you mean you haven't seen this yet, Aaron? You're going to love it. And just mainly because people with, like yourself, who have great taste, love this show. Kevin is a mutual friend of ours. He hates that I won't see this.
I think the rest
I
of
love
the
it.
cast, because it is one of his vehicles, and Jody Hill is writing partner, producer. So it has a lot of the same things, because it has Walton, because he was in Vice Principals, and they
Yes.
did that together. And
I love him. That when they put him on the cast,
So
I was even more.
I think there's enough of the rest of the
Okay.
cast that maybe you could overlook. But regardless, what was really great about this show is obviously it's this parody of these evangelists
Right.
and that whole religious thing that we all very well know in America.
Yeah.
But as the show progressed, it just got like batshit crazy.
Right on.
Like every season, it was just like, at first it was more of like a bit of like a comedic satire of this, and then it turned into like, oh fuck, it's just off the rails.
Right. Yeah.
Like anything can happen now. So the last season, particularly with Walton Goggins, is just like, holy shit.
Right on.
I just like,
Did you watch White Lotus at all?
oh yes, yeah. Okay, so yeah, also, so we all watched the last season, season
No,
3.
I haven't seen White Lotus either.
The first, you haven't
I've
seen
not
any of the
seen
seasons?
any of them. No. I didn't really understand what it was. Seeing the commercials didn't seem like a thing of mine. But now all I'm hearing from people like yourselves, who I respect your taste, is, oh no, you should check it. And I'm like, okay, god damn it, So okay, I think I've come to a point in my life now where it's just like, there's so much good stuff.
Right?
I have reserved myself to the
Right.
fact I'm just not going to see everything.
Yeah.
I'm just not. And if that means sacrificing the righteous gemstones so I can see, Back to School for the 50 billionth time, I'm going to do that. I'm sorry. I'm just going to do it, But at some point I do want to get around to some of these. But yeah, it's just every time you turn around and you feel like, well, I'll wait for that season to end, and then I can start this other new show. Then they go, oh, by the way, here's this new show that's going. And you go, well, son of a bitch, I want to see that too.
I
Which
know.
is
It's too much to consume out
It
there,
is.
and
It's-
like, yes, and a lot of quality. So
Yes.
I mean, you got to really pick and choose and live your life and be happy. I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
how much time do we all need to be
you.
spending this way? But at the same time, yeah, it's hard to escape.
It is. It really is. Because you just feel there is a little FOMO in that too. Because especially we show up here and we talk with friends. Like, oh, it's this great. Damn it, I'm not seeing it. I need to.
I mean, right now, Paulie would be going, oh, oh,
Doesn't watch Righteous Gemstone, Tony.
the meme like where it's like Tony and Christopher, and they're talking. He's like, "No, Tones, it's this band called the Misfits. They dress up like evil Draculas and shit." And you're like, "Oh my god, it's brilliant!"
It is.
As he explains things to Tony out of touch.
In that way too. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
Right on.
Well,
Yeah.
Pete, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Again, Aaron.
Please, again, everybody. It is the Idlewild Experimental Music Fest, Saturday, June 28th, starting at 5 p.m. Check it out. Again, amazing artist in Pete, and believe me, the lineup will be nothing but amazing stuff to witness and to be a part of. And as something that Pete said, and I totally agree with, experimental music in general is always interesting to hear, but to see it live is truly the way to experience it. And if you have that opportunity, one is just curated as great as Pete has done, do yourself a favor, try to get out there. Yes, it's a bit of a drive, but I believe it will be worth it.
Worthwhile.
There's no doubt about
worthwhile. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much, Pete. And
Absolutely.
anytime you want to come back and review an album with us or whatever,
it. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Always
that'd
welcome.
be fun.
You have a rehearsal room hall pass. You're
Oh,
welcome
awesome,
at any
guys.
time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for
No,
inviting me and having me here today. It was
It's
a lot
our
of fun.
pleasure, man.
for sure, for sure. All right,
Cool.
guys, we'll catch you next time.
Later.
Hey, folks. Thank you so much for checking out the rehearsal room. We super appreciate you spending time with us. If you have any questions, comments, or want to yell at us for any of the takes we've expressed in any of these episodes, you can contact us by emailing us at therehearsalroompod@gmail.com. All one word, therehearsalroompod@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and now on Blue Sky. Also, if you have any recommendations for any movies or any bands you might want us to check out and give a listen to, feel free to send those in. We always accept submissions. Or if you have any shows coming up that you feel we might be interested in checking out, let us know and we'll give you guys a shout out. But thank you for checking us out, and we'll catch you next time.